When you're designing functions for yourself, you have to think of how many parameters do I need? Remember, parameters are what items does the function need in order to work. You also need to think about what data types are needed. Integers to arrays to even something larger, but that's usually down the road in this class. You have to think about that. You also have to think about, it should be added in there, do you want to give the function direct access to a value to change it or something else? So you have to worry about the ampersand or not. Something else you have to think about. You want to try to keep the function small, and again, I just said this previously, you don't want to ask for input in it, you don't want to display the results within it, you just want it to do the calculation, do its damn job, and get out of there. So that's the things you have to keep in mind when we're designing your function. So this parallels with basically what I have here. Number one is to determine the number of parameters needed and what type to check for. A function determining the area of a square, and then the same thing, area of a rectangle. Then create a predicate function is even and prove that it works. And notice, by the way, it is receiving a value. And then create a function average value in array. This one's going to take a while. Okay? It's called, when given a dynamic array of values as parameters, it will return the average. You must have a main, a pre-created list, no user input, the function, and the call to that function I have started. This is what your function would start off with. Okay? Now, remember, the array itself, it's a dynamic array, should already be populated. Don't make it too big, maybe 5 or 6 values, something like that. Don't forget you also have to pass in the size of the array too. So, and that depends on how big the array you created. So start off, these two are really, this one's easy, this one gets more interesting, and this one gets tougher. So it's going to be a while. Take your time. Obviously, I'm not going anywhere. But it's really important that you do this because, frankly, you're going to be expected to do this on your homeworks and on exams. So heads up. Let's get to work. Here's some code on the first two, which was the area square and the area rectangle. So it really answers, because, as you know, a square is the same side 4 times, I only need to place in one side and then, again, the area, so I need to do a side times a side to get the area. So I only needed one parameter to really work. I can't say that for the rectangle. It's got to at least be 2 of them, because so I can get the area of it side 1 times side 2, in order to get my 2 distinct values it could be for a rectangle. There's no guarantee they're equal sides. So that's your overall setup. But I wanted to show you, there's our prototypes. They look exactly the same as what we have with our function headers, except for no semicolon. There's the actual function itself. Notice, all it does is do the calculation and get the heck out. All of the getting of real information and stuff like that is really done in this particular example in the main. Can you do it somewhere else? Yeah, absolutely. You're more than welcome to put in another function, have it do the validation as well, and all that good stuff. But here's the overall setup for the first 2 parts of the question that we were given. So the solution for the last part, I'm actually doing in 2 parts. Now, I want to make sure this is perfectly clear. This function header is not exactly what I was asking for. Okay, I'll go over that problem here in a moment. I wanted to show you this version first because, frankly, if we have anything that uses a global constant of that nature, notice I'm using size throughout. This is not meant to be size, that's why I left it 10. But anyway, I am able to pass in size inside of this function to, frankly, denote how big of an array I wanted to. So that means I did not have to pass in the size because it was already a global variable, and I was able to go away with what I wanted. Now, what I am worried about is, notice, it's still the int star of the list. Here was the dynamic list that I created. I put some values in there that were sort of random. And then notice the cout. The only cout other than the hello world one is right here after everything is said and done. And within, the call gets done first, and then I decided to display it. I could have done this in 2 lines if I wanted to, but I didn't, okay? So notice, the average value in array did not display. There's no couts in here, none. I happen to do it from here in the main. So again, this isn't exactly the answer that I was asking for, but it's really close because I used a size of 10 to go ahead and get the size of everything. But what if you don't know what the size of the array is going to be? And that's where this one, and the correct one that I really asked for, I would have to pass in the size of the array. Now, how would that look? Well, it's not too much different than what you had before, or what I had literally above it, except for I have a parameter int size of the array, and then I'm going to use the size of the array to do my calculations. So everything that you see size is going to be replaced now by the size of the array. Now, what does the call look like? It's going to look extremely similar to this one, but as I'm probably sure you probably know already, I'm going to have to add one thing to it. So there is my call using 2 parameters. Now, by the way, the 10 there is a cheat. I admit it. Should be a variable, should have been gathered from the user or something of that nature. It should be a variable. I'm cheating, I admit it. But other than that, that's the only difference. So there's something that we really have to worry about when it comes to dynamic arrays is how are we getting our length function from it? Are we going to get it from a global variable, or are we going to get it from a local variable that needs to be passed off to another function? So there's your answer for our creating and designing of our new functions.